All right, so I'm gonna make this video for, it really pertains to any bike that has a shared engine oil and transmission oil system. So reference everything to that. I'll explain, this is for like a filter analysis that you wanna do on your own. Yeah, I guess let's just get started. So I'll explain where material usually comes from that you're gonna find in this filter. And I will say about 99% of it comes from the transmission itself. And because you have a shared crankcase and you may or may not have a transmission filter, this particular engine is from a Ducati V4S, has 4,000 miles on it. Bike doesn't have any problems, knocks, any weird noises, runs extremely good and smooth, and has a lot of oil changes just in 4,000 miles. So yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah, so the basket, or sorry, the hub itself is connected to the input shaft of the transmission, okay? And what engages with it is your steels right here. And your steels rattle, you know, when you depress the clutch and you disengage the clutch itself, the steels will rattle on the hub. And you can see the polished marks right here. Well, they're actually ledges in the actual hub itself. So you're gonna get, that's a lot of material, even though it's just a little area right here. This is not from a Ducati. This is from a KTM dirt bike, but the clutch system is the same. You can see some spring wear in here. So you're gonna get some spring wear that's gonna kick some aluminum into the shared crankcase. So that will then eventually make it into your oil filter. So the hub will kick out some material. You can see even the peaks right here where they engage on the recessed part of the steel. Those also give off aluminum. So this thing is going to kick out aluminum over its entire life. The frictions themselves don't engage with the hub. They engage with the basket. The basket is connected to the crank of the engine, whatever engine it is. And when you let go of the clutch lever, this pressure plate snaps all the frictions and steels together. I only have one friction, one steel, obviously, but you're gonna have a pack of frictions and steels, okay? There's gonna be like 10 of them or 8 of them. It all depends on your application. So there's gonna be quite a bit, which is why you see so many of these ledges. You know, that's from every steel that's in this engine, is making a little ledge because that's where it engages. So yeah, the friction is going to engage with the basket. The other part that I don't have here is a basket. And just like you see ledges here, you're gonna see ledges where these outer parts engage right here and right here. Where they engage on the basket, these rattle, you know what I mean? You see the play that it's gonna have. That's all part of it. It's a design feature in it, right? It's so you can disengage your clutch. But it will kick out material over its entire lifespan just from the basket riding right here. So you'll see that in your filter. And you won't see this, but it'll dirty the oil. It'll make it gray. The friction themselves, they wear over time. And that's gonna kick gray material into your filter. And that's gonna be what clogs the filter, is this friction material, because there's going to be so much of it from riding the bike and engaging and disengaging the clutch. If you're using quick shift, if your bike has quick shift and you're using it, you're not engaging and disengaging it so much, but you are kicking in material from another source. It's just not going to be so much from the frictions. If you're racing your bike, then definitely you need to change your filter at least more frequently, and your oil. You know, the guys go out to the track days and they're really hard on their clutches and they're going to kick a bunch of material. They're going to kick 3,000 miles worth of material into the oil. So you need to change your oil. All the race teams, all the you know, the World Superbike teams, they change their oil, you know, every session that they can bring the bike in to change their oil on, because they know that they kick out so much material. They'll actually start dropping in oil pressure because of it. So, because you're clogging the filter. So anyways, so yeah, those are your sources of material just from the clutch assembly. Now, the other big source of material is going to be from the gears, and primarily from the engagement of the gears. Like when you go from first to second gear, or second to third, third to fourth, etc. Every gear is in a bike transmission of any kind is dog engagement. You may have a bike that's synchro, but I'm talking about modern bikes, or most common transmissions on bikes are going to be dog engagement, which means you have a steel slider, okay? You have a fork. That's what I'm doing with my fingers. And we'll just pretend that this is the slider. The fork fits in the slider, and then it will either pull the slider up to engage a gear or push it down to engage a gear. You see what I'm saying? So every time it does that, it's got teeth like this. They're called dog teeth. And every time it engages a gear, it just slams those into the gear. Now, the ends of those dog teeth sort of are, well, they're squared off a lot like this. So what they do is on the tips of the dog teeth, right here on the way on the tip, right here and right here, they get rounded from engaging into the next gear and down into this gear. There's a set of dog teeth facing down and a set of dog teeth facing up. Each gear has a receiving amount of dog teeth in itself as well. So when the selector goes down, these 5 or 7 teeth connect to the gear. I'm sure there's great animations on dog boxes. Well, okay, we'll go over the names. Dog box, crash box, or dog engagement transmissions is what they're called. I'm sure there's other names that people are going to bring up, but that's primarily, you know, a source of steel material in the transmission itself, which, if you're shared, is going to end up in your filter. So all this material from the transmission and from the engine, normal wear and tear and abuse and all that, is going to end up in your filter itself. Primarily what you're going to see is material from dog engagement. It's pretty violent. It's pretty gnarly. And if you haven't seen dog gears that are wore out, you know, from racing or from, you know, really hard riding, then I will go look up some pictures and you'll see rounded off dog gears. Yeah, I had a couple of race cars, and they were manual transmission dog engagement. And I would say about once a year I would have to get the dog faces recut because they wouldn't stay in gear anymore, because this rounded end of the gear itself, like I said, it's not this, but it's squared off a lot like that. They're facing down though. These are facing out. You guys will get the drift if you go do a little research. But anyways, so the actual dog engagement itself, you know, and racing behaviors, you know, shifting quick and all this, us crashing the dog gears together, you know, very hard, is going to lead to material. It just is what it is. It's normal. It's all a part of the game, as they say. So the filter itself, all filters, they filter from the outside in. Okay, all filters filter from the outside in, because you have a larger surface area on the outside of the filter than you do on the inside for catching material. So the filters will last longer filtering from the outside in. So what you do to inspect your filter itself is, you see here, I've cut off sections. I've got a section here that I've already squeezed all the oil out of. This is a section that hasn't been squeezed. So, you know, it's just like that. That's the inside of the filter. That's the outside of the filter. So I'll squeeze that and I'll show you guys what I do, but I think you can get the drift. But you'll see that there is some metal material down in the pleats itself. I'm doing this as more of a baseline as well, so that I can see in the future. And you'll see of different like sizes and different shapes and stuff like that. And some of these I've seen like long shards and stuff. And that'll be from the dog engagement. If you hit a false neutral in your bike and then you've heard it go kunk, right? That's the dog teeth not engaging. It's actually gonna kick out a bunch of material when you do that. And it's gonna kick off these really thin shards, like slivers is what it looks like, into the oil system on your bike. And you know, if your oil pump picks it up, it's going to end up, hopefully it'll end up in your filter. If your filter does get too high of a DP, you're gonna send that material straight to your crank and your bearings. Dirty oil is better than no oil, and that's how engine manufacturers and oil filter manufacturers believe. Otherwise, if you had no oil to the bearings, you would 100% spin a bearing. If you have dirty oil in the bearings, the best is you're going to get some damage to the bearing. You're going to score them up, and it'll kick out that material. And hopefully your engine won't spin a bearing, and it'll just, you know what I mean? So anyways, that's why it's important to change your filter frequently. Because if you get a high DP from the outside to the inside of the filter, aka this gets clogged, what it'll do is, if you see that spring down in there, there's actually a spring right here if you look through this hole, and what it'll do is it'll open this bypass right here. There's a bypass on the end of these filters, and it'll allow oil from the outside of the cavity in through the middle, and then this outputs to the engine itself. So you want to change these frequently. Obviously, you know, you guys are, if you're looking at this video, you probably do change them frequently, and you change them enough. You want to be somewhat educated on what you're finding in your filter. You can see that there's not a pileup of debris. Okay, so if you see a pileup of debris in the filter, be very concerned, because that would mean a ton of debris came from somewhere. Okay. Also, if you see bronze or what looks like gold in the filter, copper, those kind of colors are going to come from your bearings. It could come from a bushing inside your transmission as well. So it just means you need to investigate. Engine bearings are built with soft materials to embed foreign material that makes it by the filter through the bypass. Engine bearings are meant to embed that material. They're made with very soft materials, and race bearings are built with multiple layers of soft materials to embed material in them, so you don't scratch your crank, it doesn't score up anything. Like I said, you're just gonna wear out your bearings quicker if you get material in them. If you get enough material in them, then they're gonna spin. It'll cause enough damage to the bearing itself that it'll spin the bearing. So that's kind of some bearing design. We covered, let's see, we covered where material usually comes from and what you can expect to see in a filter. You can see that there's not very much material in this filter, but the material I do see is silver or aluminum. I haven't put a magnet to it. This isn't copper or anything. It's a part of this. So you gotta, you know, also the good thing is to look at the back side of the filter. I don't see any material in the back side of the filter. Material doesn't get stuck at the peak right here. That was from my toolbox. I should be more clean with this when I do a video, but material gets stuck in the pleat. It doesn't get stuck in the peak. It gets stuck down in the pleat right here. Okay, it's kind of like a gold sluice. You know what I mean? If you've ever watched any of the kind of that stuff. You don't really see anything in this filter at all until you squeeze all the oil out of the pleats themselves. So I'll try to do this in a way that you guys can see it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap this filter up, or you know what, I'll wrap it somewhat, just partially, and then you guys can see. It's better if you use a vise for this, but you can use a set of like vice grips or whatever because of how small this filter is compared. But if you're doing like a big engine oil filter or something like that, you're going to have to use a vice. So I've clamped the filter, and you can see that the oil's got squished out of the filter so that you can properly inspect it. Okay, the pleats are completely mashed together about halfway. So I'll do the other half now. I'm gonna just try and get all the oil soaked up so it doesn't, or else it'll just get reabsorbed into the pleats. It's kind of like a spongy fabric. And then what I'll do is I'll just flip this around and squeeze it again on the other side. There you go. Hopefully you guys can see the oil is getting squished out of the pleats. So now we've completely squeezed out most of the oil, enough to do an inspection anyways. And you're just going to open it up like an accordion. Okay, pull it, stretch it way out. And you can see in this side of the filter, you don't see very much. There's just a couple of flakes right there, and that's it in the filter. So I actually saw more material on this side. And then, so that's the front side, that's the filtering side. This side is completely clean with nothing in it. So that tells me the filter didn't bypass during operation. If you see some metal flakes on the back, that means the filter was bypassing like this. And then obviously the material, as it travels up through the filter, it'll get stuck behind the pleats on the clean side of the filter itself. So yeah, something you know, if you're doing your oil filter analysis between changes, this is what you look for, and hopefully this helps somebody.